Are you feeling stressed? What if I told you the best cure isn't another meditation app or deep breathing exercise, and it may not have anything to do with you at all? We're diving into surprising new research that might be the ultimate stress reliever today on Off the Couch. And welcome to Off the Couch with Dr. Greg, because growth doesn't happen lying down. I'm Dr. Greg Cason, psychologist, here with producer Brian Gomez.
Happy Tuesday, you guys.
And also here on the board, Tony Sweet. Hi, Tony.
Well, hello.
Joining us from his secret remote location. Today on Off the Couch, we're talking about stress and why so many of our go-to fixes just don't seem to work. You know the routine: meditation apps, breathing exercises, yoga classes, but somehow we still feel overwhelmed. I know I feel overwhelmed. Do you, Brian?
Always.
Yeah, and I don't expect miracles from those things, but I still do engage. But in this episode, I'm going to share a surprising solution backed by research that flips the entire idea of stress relief on its head. Stick around. This might be the one change how you think about stress forever. But before we dive in, let's figure out what kind of stressors we are. Is that good? How we handle stress. So this is a test, which is, are you an innie or an outie with stress? And all three of you, Tony, all three of you being one, referring to myself in the third person there, I guess. But Tony, I want you to play along if we can. It's a 5-question quiz. It's just A or B, so you can count along at home on one hand, perhaps. Our goal is to help you discover if you lean more inward to self-focused stress management or outward toward empathy-driven connection, or you do a combination of both. So let's try it. Number 1, when you feel stressed, what's your first instinct? Is it A, to isolate and focus on calming yourself down, or B, call or help a friend or offer support to somebody else? So when you're feeling stressed, what's your first instinct? Isolate and focus on calming yourself down, or B, call a friend? Got that? Number 2, which of these feels most restorative to you after a hard day? Is it A, meditation, TV, and alone time, or B, doing something kind or thoughtful for somebody? Meditation, alone time, or doing kind and thoughtful for somebody? Number 3, at work, when a colleague is struggling, I focus on my own deadlines first. That's A. I'm taking the quiz myself, so it's throwing me off. At work, when a colleague is struggling, I focus on my own deadlines first. It's their problem, not mine. Or B, I offer a quick check-in, even if it's just, hey, you doing okay? So at work, when you see a colleague struggling, when you see a co-employee having a problem, do you just focus on your own work, or do you check in with them and say, are you okay? Number 4, when you hear about a community need, like a volunteer request, you'd go A, you feel tired just thinking about it, I have my own problems, or B, you get curious or consider helping even if briefly. So is that number 4, when you hear about a community need, do you feel tired just thinking about it, or do you get curious and consider helping? And number 5, how do you define self-care? So this is how we define self-care. Is it A, me time, recharging by being left alone, or B, taking care of yourself so you have energy to support others? That's me time, recharging, or B, taking care of yourself so that you'll have energy to support others. What are your answers? Would you say mostly A's, mostly B's, or a mix of A's and B's? Brian.
For me, it's mostly A's and I had one B.
Okay, mostly A's, Brian. And with you, Tony?
I'm scared to answer it, but it's 4 A's and 1 B also.
Okay, mostly A's. For me, I want to say I was a mix, but I really only had 1 A. I had 4 B's. So
Wow.
let's talk about that. Mostly A's, you're inwardly focused. You may rely heavily on solo coping strategies. Consider adding micro acts of service to your routine to boost connection. And we're going to talk about that. So we'll give you. You're mostly solo focused people, Tony, but you're both have a mix because you have a B. Both
Mm.
have a B.
Was Tony, was your B number 4?
Actually, my B was number 3.
Oh,
So number 3 is when a work colleague is struggling. Your B, Tony, was that you offering a quick check-in. That makes sense as a boss.
Right.
You've been a boss for how long?
A long time.
A long time. And Brian, yours was number 4. When you hear about a community need, oh, you get curious and consider helping. That makes absolute sense considering what I know about you.
yeah.
You have you're community minded when it comes to those things. So if you're A, you're mostly inwardly focused. You two are mostly mostly B's, which I guess I landed on, which is empathy builder. You naturally use empathy to manage stress, which research shows can improve well-being and resilience. And we'll talk more about that. Or you're a mix of A's and B's, which is what I would have pegged myself as. You blend self-care with caring for others. And there's a my A, just so you know, was very particular. My A was number 2. Oh, yeah. Which of these feels most restorative after a hard day? That is I said A, meditation, TV, or alone time. And I will tell you, because my hard day is helping others all day long. So sometimes I need to not talk. So lying down or being alone, closing the door, like I used to, there's even a shot of me on my reality show because when I came home from work, I'd always want to come home and lie on the deck upstairs and just, sit there with a beer and be quiet.
Yeah, I think when you have a job that you're having to interact with people and always be on in the moment, it can be exhausting to where when I have a day full of interacting with people, I'm like, I just want peace and quiet and just alone time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, what's interesting too is that the mostly A's, that is going to be the kind of modal response. That means probably we're going to see most people pick that. That seems to be what's
Mm-hmm.
prevalent in our culture, and I'm going to talk more about that. And it seems to be the recommended route to go, including from people like me, from therapists. So it's not that you're doing something wrong. In fact, maybe you're onto something right, but let's talk more about this if we can. So there's a stress epidemic going on. 77% of people experience stress so much that it affects their health. I've certainly been there. I've had stress mediated illnesses in the past where they turn into real physical illnesses, but they were caused primarily by stress.
Huh.
That could be something as kind of generic as IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, or headaches, or muscle tension, or backaches, those types of things. But it can also be something very, very serious. I actually developed a very serious ulcerative issue that came up that was primarily due to stress, which was kind of interesting to me. It made me have to rethink things.
No, I mean, that's true. I dealt with the same thing when I was leaving the military. I ended up having like chronic acne breaking out and everything to where I had never had that issue before. And it was like nothing was working, but it was the stress. I was nauseous all the time. Like it was a whole month of just chaos inside of my body whenever I was leaving.
Fascinating. And Tony, you've been good all along. You're kind of a
Oh.
no stress guy.
No, I stress. I just hide it very well. But I also, when I was younger, I had an ulcer in my 20s from stress so much. So
Mine actually developed in my esophagus, which was a really problematic area for that to happen.
yeah.
So that caused me to not be able to eat and drink for like, I don't know, at least a week, maybe 2 weeks. I lost a great deal of weight, and it made me have to like rethink my entire life after that point.
Well, people also like have heart attacks too, right? From stress.
They do. They do. It can get very serious. It can get
Mhm.
very serious. So traditional solutions we often talk about, we say, do meditation. I don't know about you. Do you meditate?
Like I've tried. I really tried, but it is so hard for me to stay quiet and still in my mind for that long. Or I don't know, to get into that state of it. I don't know. Or maybe when I feel like I have done it, I've fallen asleep and I'm like, is that meditating
Oh,
at
yeah.
that point?
No, I get it. I often, have tried since I've been in college. I was in a study in my freshman year for transcendental meditation. This is like the type of meditation that was really popular in the 70s. And this is, where you have a mantra and you keep it secret. And I was in this whole stress study at UCLA as a freshman, and my group was the meditators. And I really, really tried during that time, but I I fell off the wagon so many times. But it was interesting to me, but not a practice I kept up with.
No, and I feel like my meditation, for me, I've told you guys when I would go surfing, just being out there waiting for the wave is when I have that clear like mentality, just unplugging and just
Mhm.
being in that moment of, I don't know, something about being in the water in the sun and just being still there without any distractions. That's my form of meditation for me.
So it's so interesting you say that because I really developed my own theory that meditation can be done actively, like taking a walk in nature or petting a pet, an animal,
Mm.
or could be done like ways I liked. I often recommend surfing for people who do it. I think there's nothing better because you're in the sun, you're connected with the water. I mean, I grew up by the water, so I understand this connection, and that you can feel completely at one with nature and the world when you're in those moments. But plus, when you're surfing, you actually have to focus and have to catch a wave, that it causes you to really narrow your mind in a very particular way that acts like meditation. So it can have a very key healing effect. Also, things like praying, going to church, that offers that for some people. I mean, there are different ways to do it. My grandmother used to do the rosary every day, and that is an active meditation. That She would basically work the entire rosary.
And we have that book, the Healing Spaces book, that it goes over,
Mhm.
the data between meditation and prayers, and that it just goes side by side on the effect that it has.
Oh, yeah. And so I've always believed in that as a good thing. But for me, I kind of discovered that for me, like going into these boot camp classes, which is a little embarrassing to say, but I found those meditative because here I was having somebody else tell me what to do with exercise versus having to instruct myself. Plus the music and the fact that there are a bunch of other people around me, so I didn't feel on display. Like Tony, you were a personal trainer at one point in your life, you said, and that's the one problem if you have a trainer is that you want to talk to him.
Uh-huh.
But when you're in a group class, you can't talk to other people or people will peg you for being rude.
I actually
'Cause-
taught group fitness for 16 years.
Ah,
I actually loved it just because it was a relief. Just go in, don't worry about anything else, but just sweating and exercising and energy from everybody else. Yeah.
yeah. No, I think I first discovered it. There was a form of exercise called aerobics, which kind of faded away. That Jane Fonda really made it popular, and there was a popular here in LA called Sports Connection. That really, I think it was the reason for the movie Perfect. They featured the
Mm.
sports connection. I mean, it was like this really key gem in the Hollywood scene, and that's where aerobics really became very hot and popular. And then that, of course, caught on in the entire nation. Then it was on every TV show, etc. So it was a great thing, and they were all active meditation. So I really feel like that's a real thing. But there may be something more that this isn't addressing because the problem is many self-care strategies put the burden back on the individual. Like if you are stressed, you need to do stuff differently. You need to start addressing things. You need to pull back from other people. You need to, do less work. You need to go, spend more time with yourself and do more meditation, etc. And this can make people feel broken if they don't work at it. And if it doesn't work, like sometimes it doesn't.
It sounds a little like religion in that way,
How so?
where it's like you almost feel guilty if you're not doing it. Like you're being guilted if we're not taking care of yourself, or doing it a specific way. Or, like we said, meditation's different for a lot of people, that it's like if you are technically not meditating how other people are doing it, it can seem like, oh, you don't care about yourself or you're not taking care of yourself.
There you go.
I don't know.
That's very interesting.
That's how I just came up in my head.
Yeah, I hate when people guilt people for not meditating. I think it's great if people meditate, and I have zero problem if they don't.
Or working on themselves.
It's great if they're working on themselves, and well, we'll talk about that today. But I have zero problem if someone isn't. Like I don't understand the guilt trip to people that's now happening in the world, especially like it happens in the manosphere with the you got to work out all the time and you got to eat this and take creatine and make your bed every day. I mean, I recommend making your bed every day, but I did it to help with depression. I didn't do it because it's a rule that you have to follow. And I don't believe in rules that you have to follow. I believe in guidelines. I believe in points on the horizon. I believe a direction to travel in, but that you don't always have to follow the same path. And I've always believed that. And so sometimes I've struggled with some of these rigid pieces of advice. I never, what do they call that when you do food prep, meal prep?
Oh, meal prep.
I never did that. And I probably should have, to like follow to follow some sort of easy meal advice. But I have to say I've always struggled with that stuff.
Well, one thing I've always learned from you that I've kept in my mind is how you've always said that we don't use the word should or anything.
Yes, and I just said it. I caught it myself, but yeah, I didn't want to belabor it too much. But yeah, no, it's it's not wrong that I didn't do that stuff, and I don't feel wrong. I really genuinely don't. I do follow a routine in the morning, but it's a routine that really works for me and it wakes me up.
And it
So
makes you happy.
it makes me happy to do it. Like I get up, I brush my teeth and shave early because I don't like doing those things. So I try to knock them out fast. And then I make the bed not because I like making the bed, I really don't, but I do love getting into a made bed. So what I do is do it right away to get it out of the way. And then I go and, I kind of get my stuff together and I go off to the gym. I walk to the gym and that really helps me. And then I work out and then sometimes I'll go to the store and then walk home. By the time I get home, I'm pretty ready to like begin my day. I take a shower and get on with things. And it really works for me, but it took me a while to get to that point.
And I think everybody has their own way of moving through life, like we can't do the same thing. I can't do the same routine you do, and it wouldn't work and it wouldn't last that way.
No. I certainly can't follow other people's routines. And I don't try to push my routine on anybody else. I'll talk about it, but like I like working out in the morning. I used to like working out at night. It just changed. So it changed because I had to get used to it for work, and then I kind of got used to it. Is basically how it happened. But let's talk about there's something I saw a little while ago, maybe not too long ago, that really bugged me. It was on the Joe Rogan show, and this is a clip of Elon Musk talking about empathy. Can you get that up, Tony?
I can. Here we go.
The fundamental weakness of Western civilization is empathy. The empathy exploit. They're exploiting a bug in Western civilization, which is the empathy response. So, and I think empathy is good, but you need to think it through and not just be programmed like a robot.
Okay, there's that. And that's always bugged me because I kind of agree with that you don't want to be programmed like a robot, but I do not believe that's the fundamental weakness in Western civilization. And in fact, I feel like it might be quite the opposite. And so and this coming from a man who just did the whole Doge thing, clearly didn't operate from a place of empathy. Clearly slashed and burned and hurt a great many people, not just the people that he had fired willy-nilly, but also, I mean, thousands of people. But he also hurt maybe millions of people by cutting off aid programs to the poorest. And as
Mm.
I believe, I don't know who exactly said it. Was it Bill Gates said, it looks a little bad when the world's richest man is cutting off food to the world's poorest people. So that was an understatement by Bill Gates, but made the point. And then I saw this video this week.
Oh, Lord.
This is let's just play the news segment from this that just happened this week.
A Polish millionaire is speaking out today after facing backlash for stealing a hat from a child at the U.S. Open this week, and it wasn't to apologize. Yikes. This happened after a match when tennis star Kamil Myshak was signing autographs after his win. He took off his hat to give to the boy, but that man snatches it away and takes off with it. After facing criticism online, the man responded by saying, quote, "If you were faster, you would have it," and threatened legal action for those criticizing him. But Myshak met up with the boy afterwards and gave him another hat to make up for it. I don't know what that man can do to make up for his actions. But, you know, he's got to live with it.
Yeah.
Zero empathy. Not only zero empathy, but cruelty.
Wow.
My thought about this was like, we need to let Luigi Mangione back out on the streets because what the F? Like, as a grown adult man.
And there's a place in the video, and I didn't even know whether to point this out, but filming it is either his girlfriend or a woman who's right behind him, who's smiling and filming what's going on, like as it's happening. And I don't know if she didn't see that he stole it, maybe, but I hope that she knows now that he stole it. And if she's still good with that behavior, then she's complicit.
I'm just saying, if Luigi was just back out on the streets, this would fix it right on the spot, because I just don't understand how you could even think that's, like, I don't know, that's just gross behavior. Like, I don't even know how you could make that right other than letting Luigi talk to him one-on-one.
What I don't find that I mean, it actually contradicts when they say "Make America Great Again." I'm not trying to get into political, but when I was a kid, I'm sure when you were a kid, if I did anything like that, my parents would scold me, spank my butt, and say, "You need to give that hat back to." But it's becoming more obvious from the top down that this is becoming so, like, oh, we're creating babies and we're creating weak people. And I'm like, but no, we're not.
In fact, babies are the people who seem to be running the nursery here.
Right.
And what's happening from the top down, if I may say, those videos from the White House, which I actually considered putting on here because it showed such cruelty and lack of empathy, like celebrating rounding up people with ice and chaining them and putting them on planes to be deported, or the Homeland, whatever secretary, Kristi Noem, standing in front with, a Rolex watch or whatever. She was wearing some super expensive watch and just dressed super sexy in front of the jail with people whose lives are gone. I mean, essentially.
But do you guys see these actions and these little things that they're doing as like weaknesses? Like, I don't see a strong person ever behave that way, or somebody with integrity and like,
no.
I just can't see. Like, I would want, back in the days when the president would march into war with their entire,
Right. That is a sign of strength. No, we no longer are seeing those. We're seeing.
It's like cyber bullies.
These are cyber bullies. You're exactly right. And then certainly the minions online are cyber bullies. And this is what they do. They just type.
Well, even
keyboard warriors.
I would say even like the man in the White House, like that's He's standing behind all these guards and all these people. Like these people would never behave like that in real situations because
Uh,
either they would get their ass whooped or they would get chopped.
He I mean, we could talk about his psychology. Maybe one day we will. But the reality is he's a very fragile, fearful man. And
mhm.
he wouldn't act this way if he weren't.
And would
Period.
you say not just him, but like the people all in that realm?
Of course they are, because they're selling their souls, or they're just the same. So even if you do have empathy, but you decide to set it aside for sake of power, then indeed you are selling your soul is what's going on.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry. I don't mean to be unequivocal, but I don't think how anyone can see what's happening and not be and be okay with it and not have have empathy. You can't have empathy and be okay with it. The problem is, and this was another study. I don't we don't want to go into because it goes away from our topic. But to people who are really supporters of the man in the White House, um, they're all tend to have one character trait in common, and it tends to be love of authoritarianism. So they want to be told what to do. And this is basically people who operate from fear. I've said this for years, that the people who are the most fearful like things the most rigid because it protects them. And they want someone who they feel like who's super rigid, that will be the cage around them that will keep them safe.
From what?
And well, but they feel like the world is having an onslaught. If you watch certain media stations, Fox News and others, you're going to be scared to step out your front door. They thrive on fear. And it's good for their business model because it keeps people coming back, but it doesn't help their psyche. It just makes them more and more fearful. And when you feel vulnerable, you feel fearful. And that's just a real thing. So when you feel strong as a human being, you don't feel like you need to do these things. That's why typically strong people are people who have real power in the world, typically, generally, are cool. Like when I've met real powerful people here in Hollywood, people that come into my therapy sessions, etc., they aren't trying to push me around. They're being very respectful. They're being wonderful. They're cool. They work on things, etc. The people that I have the problem with are like the wannabes. So that's the kind of weird issue that's actually there. But this takes me back to why we even got to this topic. So I read an article in the New York Times, which was really intriguing to me, called "Is Today's Self-Help Teaching Everyone to Be a Jerk?" This is an article by Emma Goldberg where she kind of postulated, wait a minute, maybe these self-help things are actually screwing us up a bit. And and she was going through the different books, the self-help books. And then I read another article by David Brooks. This is in the New York Times opinion section. David Brooks is a conservative writer for the most part, and he likes to write about social psychology and social stuff. He talked about the wrong definition of love and how he was going through and saying that, he had looked on his Substack was there, and people were surveying what lets you know that you're loved, and people said things like, I feel seen. It's that moment that somebody else lets me know that I'm special. It's things like that. And he's like, why is it, basically he's asking the question, why is love about you? And I was really thrown by this too, because I remember for me, when I feel love, I feel less me. I feel very connected to somebody else, which makes me feel bigger. It's like you have another person who actually lifts you up. And that was my definition. So, and then I saw a third article called "I Study Stress. And this cure surprised me and helped me." And it's a stress psychologist who was doing a presentation. This was in the Wall Street Journal. Here you get a flavor of what I read. So this was in the Wall Street Journal, and it was this in health wellness part. And she wrote, "How strangers in Hawaii taught me that self-care can mean caring for others." This was by a psychologist, Rebecca Heiss. And it was an interesting one because she kind of goes through she tells a story about how she's doing this big presentation and she forgot I guess her luggage was lost or she forgot her clothes. I can't remember what the deal was. And then she had to go down. She's like, where can I buy clothes? But there are places in Hawaii that aren't near a department store. So she was in one of those places. She could not get to a store. All she could find was aloha shirts, like the Hawaiian shirts, which in Hawaii, it doesn't matter if everyone else is wearing a suit. That's still appropriate, but she probably didn't know that. So she wanted to go get business wear. So one of the people an employee at the hotel said, "Here are my keys for my car. Just take it. It's a half hour from here. There's a store. Just bring the car back." Handed this woman, without knowing her keys and said, "Take my car. It's a half hour from here. Come right back." And this blew this woman's mind. And she started to ask this question, why do you do this? And people would say, helping others helps me.
Because the lady was stressed, remember in the article?
Yeah.
She had her own stresses, and helping this woman that had lost her stuff, made her feel a little less stressed and kind of take the focus away from her stressors and helping her in that sense. Because I read the article.
Yeah. It's an interesting article. And this is when it all came together for me. But maybe we're thinking about stress all wrong. And my own reluctance, I have to go through my own history that I always hated the concept of self-esteem, even though I lacked it. I probably needed it. But I couldn't get there by just telling myself, I'm better than other people, or I'm great, or I do self-affirmations. Those always seemed like BS to me. And believe me, I tried. It wasn't like I didn't try. I didn't just judge them. I did try. But it just didn't work for me. But what really helped with me was the concept of self-efficacy. And self-efficacy was developing a belief in my own abilities, actually doing things. And part of my self-efficacy is, in fact, helping others. So that was a big change for me. Also, I turned away from absolutism of self-improvement. I don't like that you have to follow these rules. You have to be this kind of a person. That never made sense. And being gay, I think, really helped me there because I could not follow the rules that were set down for me in society, nor in the church I grew up in, nor in the conservative enclave I grew up in. I did not fit. So I had to just kind of make sense of all that was going on, despite what everyone else kept telling me. And then I had a personal shift away from work, which I talked about earlier, and I started to have to think about family and friends. And this was a long shift for me. So I was very, very work-oriented because I had to pull myself up by the bootstraps. I didn't have anyone to pay for college or work or, apartment or anything. I always had to do all that stuff. And I don't regret it, but I always think how many people helped me along the way, some very significant ways. So it's never only about me. You can't pull yourself up by your bootstraps all by yourself. It's total BS. And the fact is, what I was able to do is I didn't need anyone to help me money-wise, perhaps, because I made that happen. But people gave me jobs. People took chances on me. People helped me. People guided me. People said no to me sometimes, and that was helpful. Didn't feel good, but it was helpful. And then I switched more to I need to focus on people. And that's been a years long evolution for me. Tony, I know you just made a big shift in your life.
I did.
You moved away from the city and you're moving out. You're living out, not in the sticks. It's actually quite beautiful where you live. But tell me, how was that shift for you?
It was a big decision because, I gave up the studio and some clientele and kind of but I felt like I needed a change. So for me overall, I think it was a good change. And I think being out here, it feels a little more comfortable to me because it's not the city. I'm more with nature more out here. So, I think if I was younger, it may have been a bigger impact on me than now.
Yeah, and I can see that because I used to love that I could walk to the clubs.
Yeah.
Now I'm annoyed by the people walking to the clubs. No, I'm a kid about that. But now I like walking to the gym. Maybe that's, I just switched my walk. But anyway, there's a cultural shift happening in this age of self, which is happening right now. So the self-help movement, where the modern self-help encourages boundaries, protecting your peace, saying no. And I preach assertiveness. I do preach some of these things. Like sometimes people do need to watch their boundaries about certain things, but I've never wanted to do it at the sacrifice of a relationship. And people will often chide me. Usually they're not mental health people. They're people in the public who have very rigid ideas about what should be. And they're like, you should not have this relationship with this person. And I'm like, I never blame somebody for having a relationship with somebody. I, in fact, want to be curious about it. But if it's a relationship that isn't working, then I understand that relationship won't end until the bad outweighs the good. That is based on strong research. And so when the bad outweighs the good, the relationship will end. So if somebody's in a relationship where it looks pretty bad, there's some payoff that's happening.
What if they're just a friendship, but it's not bad? The person is just like, I just don't feel like I want to be friends with them anymore.
Brian, this is a recurring theme in this show. This person, I think the bad has started to outweigh the good with you.
Well, no. This is like somebody that was super close to me before, and I saw the whole self-help movement situation that they dove like head first into. And it happened throughout time that like first it was like another mutual, really good close friend we had that this person just didn't really care to put the same effort in to like hang out with this friend, and like a friend we had mutually, she was always willing to like drive into town or do whatever, our mutual friend wanted to do, but it was never the other way around. Till this friend just was like, you know what, I'm just not going to keep investing this energy into this friend. And then the friend I'm talking about, they also had another super close, like childhood friend that they just didn't want to be friends with them anymore. And then I feel like I was the third to just be like, I don't want to be friends with you anymore because you're no longer the same person. Like, it changed. It was so weird. Like, it almost felt like if I wasn't behaving or doing the same self help things, I was being judged or like not good in that way, or like I wasn't investing into I don't know. And I felt like we're just growing in different paces or doing different things. I don't know. This person changed to a completely different person that I no longer knew.
Well, you're talking about the risk, the overcorrection can lead to, about overcorrection with this in the name of self-protection can lead to isolation.
And that's what I feel like that's genuinely what happened. And I had no idea how to even reach out, or because it was people that were so close to this person that I'm like, I don't know how somebody can just cut ties like that and be okay with this when it's like a friend group that always had your back and helped you at any moment, and maybe this person was struggling with a bigger situation internally that they were trying to it felt like they were trying to save themselves from whatever they were dealing with inside, but in that process, they lost everybody around them.
That's probably the case, that they were trying to save themselves, and who knows what was going on. That could be a sign of sort of dealing with trauma from the past, etc. But yeah, I think we were to cast a wider lens. It's certainly popular in culture right now. There are all these #1 best-selling books. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. That's by Mark Manson. The Courage to Be Disliked. Oh, I shouldn't have said that word, huh? Anyway, it's the name of the book. The Courage to Be Disliked, by Kashimi and Koga. Also, there's a book called Fawning. Fawning is the title. Why we need to please Why the Need to Please Makes Us Lose Ourselves and How to Find Our Way Back. It's by Ingrid Clayton. That's a new book that's out right now about people pleasing, which I think is valuable to look at. But again, these books kind of preach a certain solution that may not always lead in the best direction. Another one is this Adult Children of Emotionally Mature Parents. I heard a very long 2-hour interview with the writer, Lindsay Gibson, psychologist. I thought she was very compelling in sort of the look at it, but I thought it was casting too broad of a net when I listened to it, because parents are people, and sometimes they're emotionally immature. That happens.
And sometimes they also only have certain tools that they were given to,
That's
as like when they were growing up. And I feel like as adults, we don't see that, or we're blinded to it too. But they are just humans trying to do what they can with the best that they can.
But what she, in this emotionally immature parent, she was basically advocating not to have a relationship. And as a psychologist, I never give an absolute like that, because I'm not there in the relationship. What I do is try to help them evaluate. I will weigh in sometimes, which I probably shouldn't even do that. But I
Give them
don't.
tools.
I do try to give them tools to deal with things. And then the biggest one right now that I can't tell you how many clients will come in and talk about, the Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. This is a book that was based on a poem called Let Them. And I don't think she even credits the poet. I mean, she's a sly one. That's what.
We saw the interview breakdown, remember? That's what changed my whole mind.
Oh yeah, that's right. But but it's basically, it's going into that theory of allowing, just to allow other people to be other people. But when we look at the larger theory of acceptance, which allowing fits into, I could talk about this because it's one I had to come 2 years ago. That is not the end point. Allowing people to be themselves is a good thing, but it's not the end point. You can still advocate for what you want, and you can still step back. And it's not about cutting off relationships. It's about not demanding people be people other than they are, but you can ask them to be different. It's a whole thing. So this is good. It's like saying, "Oh, I'm allergic to peanuts," and you say, "Don't eat them."
And then I'm like, let them.
Well, don't eat the peanuts, but you're like, okay, but I still need to eat. So there it just doesn't end there, and there's a whole world you have to have beyond that.
And then I have the whole point of view. It's like when somebody's truly doing something bad, how are you just going to be like, let them? Like, I understand what they're saying in the book, but I'm like, you can't just go around your whole life saying, let them, let everybody. You're going to just let somebody just rob you or take your car. I don't know. At some point, you can't just let them.
And then going back to that Wall Street Journal article I talked about, the I Study Stress and This Cure Surprised Me article, that she talked about a study in the article that I went and found. Because at first, she's like, this study said this is the way to go, et cetera, et cetera. So I went and found the original study. This is from Industrial Relations Journal in 2024. It wasn't immediately evident from reading the article what this study was. I had to read the whole article. And it does actually hit on the point she talks about, which is good. But it's in the UK, so it's a British population, and it is dealing with people who have work stress, not general stress, but work stress. But I do believe it's still generalizable. Like, this is still a strong finding to look at. But only one intervention, when they looked at worked for reducing stress when people were at work. And it wasn't meditating, and it wasn't relaxing, it wasn't doing mantras. It wasn't staying in your own lane and just doing your work and letting other people do theirs. It wasn't any of that. Do you know what it was?
Was it helping each other?
Helping each other, serving others. It wasn't even a strong finding, but what it did show in this big study was that the other ones had kind of an equal meh effect. Only this one had the stronger effect and was robust. Like it kept going. So that that thing started to make people feel less stressed over time, which I thought was pretty cool.
Well, I feel like you've talked about it before too, about like the effect of doing something nice for somebody, right? That you
Yeah.
instantly feel
Yeah.
good, you know?
I've recommended that as an antidepressant, like to do work for others. And it's funny, I used to do industrial training, and I did it for UCLA. This everything's UCLA. I mean, I've spent so many years of my career, school and career. So, and I was doing it with a research group there. And one thing I recommended is that they do one act of kindness a week that's secret, that they don't tell other people. And I had one person completely balk at that, like not just flinch, but said, "Oh, you've got to be kidding." And I said, "Yeah, like if you get to the copy machine and there's no paper, put the paper in. If you go to the restroom and there's no toilet paper, replace the toilet. Like do those things. Like and don't tell anyone." Because I know that will help them. They feel like they're supporting others, and other people will feel supported. Now, it's true there are narcissistic or sociopathic people who will just take advantage of those things, but they aren't the majority. And we're not doing things just to spite those people. We want to do things to support the other people. So love and connection isn't just about being seen. It's about serving and caring for another person. So people think love is just about me. It's about the other person. If you're thinking it's about you, you haven't gotten out of your own way.
That's what the article was saying, right? When you do stuff for each other, when you pay attention to the other person, do stuff for them. That's what I love. I like that article where
Yeah,
it broke it down that way.
There's a psychologist, or I think he's a psychologist, Eric Fromm, or a psychiatrist. He wrote a book called Love, Loving, I think on Love, or I can't remember. I read it in college. But he talked about love as an active concerns for another person's growth, active concern for another person's growth, and a practice that requires overcoming your own narcissism. So there is an inward versus outward focus. So the inward focus to handle stress is and this is the yoga mat, phone, self-care checklist. This is going down. I'm de-stressing by looking at Instagram, or the other one, TikTok. And this leads to isolation and pressure to fix yourself. Or there's the outward focus, which is handshake, heart, volunteering, leads to connection and shared resilience. And as I've been going through the grief process of my brother and sister, a lot of people have said, well, how can you do therapy? That must be so hard. I'm like, no, it's the opposite. It's helpful for me to be there for other people. It really helps. It's when I go home and I'm alone that I have the issue.
I can see that because you've built a community almost within your clients, you know?
Yeah, and I
think
don't
key.
I don't ask them for support. It's giving the support
Mhm.
that's actually the helpful mechanism. That's the wild thing. If I wanted them for support, I mean, yikes. There are probably those therapists, those are narcissistic therapists. I'd stay far away. Also, this will also help you overcome the loneliness factor. The Surgeon General said that loneliness was like smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So this will help you feel less alone, more connected to other people. Empathy-driven actions actually rebuild social ties and buffer stress. So this is a new model for well-being that I'm putting out there. Instead of self-optimization leading to perfectionism, which leads to burnout, try empathy, which leads to connection, which leads to shared resilience. I always go back to, if you're a pallbearer at a funeral, I know, of course, I have these examples. If you're a pallbearer at a funeral, you can't lift the coffin by yourself. But if you get 8 people, you lift it up, and it's surprisingly light. Have either of you guys had this experience?
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
not personally, but
Oh.
I've seen it.
It's weird, isn't it, Tony? When you've lifted up and you're like, oh, when all of us do it together, it's not a big deal.
Yeah. No, it's a teamwork.
And
So-
that's what this is. You're basically carrying stress together, and it's not that hard.
Yeah.
So just a couple of research back tips. We're going to have this on our handout on YouTube, youtube.com/Dr. Greg. But I'll just throw them out there really quick. Number 1, turn outward, serve somebody else. Number 2, use stress as a signal, not an enemy. Don't try to fight stress, try to understand it, and then use it as a signal to help others. Mix self-care with other care. Build empathy habits. Counteract loneliness, so use your empathy to connect with others. Text check-ins, those types of things, weekly coffee with a friend, and go from perfect to present. You don't have to be perfect. Perfect is enemy of the good, but I love this perfect versus present. Instead of being perfect, just stick yourself presently in front of somebody else, and then that will help. Also, animals help too. And create a workplace culture, a workplace or other place or family of culture of helping. That's going to really help you. And yeah.
Oh, no. I mean, I was just going to add that I see people often at the dog park that don't even have dogs. They just come to the fence and like just enjoy watching the dogs. Today it happened with my dog. This lady was just so in love with her that she came into the dog park just to pet her,
Oh.
like hang out with her for a second. That it builds community too, just from being there. You know, I got to know this lovely lady.
There you go. That's perfect. So, look, we have to end the show, and there's so much to talk about, but I want to say this may have helped you, and I hope it does, to start to reconceptualize how to deal with stress. And if it did help you, and I hope it does, because it's helped me, and I hope it helps you guys too, you mostly A people, that you reach out to a friend. You can send them this podcast. I would love that. You can subscribe or like this podcast. I would love that. But that would help us. So that's a way to help. But I mean, go out there and help somebody else. Pick up trash on the street. I pick up sometimes trash in front of my neighbor's house
Or in front of the office.
or in front of the office. I know no one does that. All the other therapists here walk right past it. I think it's so odd. That is an odd thing to me. But I do it. Nobody ever thanks me for it. So that's nice. I mean, it's odd. But anyway, that's it. That seemed odd that I was bragging. But, the bottom line is I just do it because I think it helps.
No, I've seen you personally do it, and I'm like, oh, that's so sweet. Whereas sometimes I'm like, I should be doing that. Like, what the heck, you know? It's not bragging. You're just being a good person.
Ah, there you go. Well, it's just I follow the same philosophy. So I'm sorry that we have to leave for today. Thanks for joining us on Off the Couch. If you saw yourself in today's patterns, if you're a mostly A person, you're not broken, you're just human, and you can add some B's into your repertoire. Remember, insight's the first step, but action moves the needle. So does social support. So if you enjoyed today's episode, share it with a friend. We talked about the links to the studies, youtube.com/Dr. Greg. And until next time, be present, be flexible, and be kind.